In Washington, a decades-old treaty is being rewritten to unleash a new global drone race. In Moscow, the Kremlin has torn up its last restraint on nuclear-capable missiles. The shadows of the Cold War return as Europe braces for a missile standoff. Once, the INF Treaty forced superpowers to dismantle thousands of weapons. Today, its collapse leaves the world edging closer to confrontation. The United States is preparing to loosen restrictions on the sale of advanced military drones, a shift that could reshape the global arms market. According to US officials, the Trump administration plans to reinterpret a decades-old arms control treaty to classify large drones such as the MQ-9 Reaper as aircraft rather than missile systems. The move would sidestep provisions of the 1987 Missile Technology Control Regime, which has long limited the export of long-range unmanned systems. It could unlock a backlog of requests, including more than 100 Reapers sought by Saudi Arabia as part of a multi-billion-dollar arms package announced earlier this year. Washington's allies in Europe and Asia have also expressed interest. Supporters of the policy argue that it will give American firms such as General Atomics, Kratos, and Anduril a competitive edge. US manufacturers have increasingly lost ground to Israeli, Chinese, and Turkish rivals that operate under looser restrictions. Neither China nor Israel is a signatory to the MTCR, while Turkey has successfully marketed its Bayraktar drones despite being a member. The reinterpretation is expected to mark the first step in a broader review of the US foreign military sales program. All future transactions would still undergo case-by-case assessment, factoring in regional dynamics, human rights records, and the buyer's ability to safeguard sensitive systems. Human rights groups caution that expanded drone sales could exacerbate instability in conflict zones, particularly in the Middle East and South Asia. The State Department has not commented on the pending change, but officials say the administration views the move as central to sustaining US defense exports. An unveiling date for the new guidelines has not been set, though sources indicate it is being timed to coincide with efforts to promote next-generation drone technologies designed to operate alongside piloted fighter jets. Russia has announced that it no longer considers itself bound by a moratorium on deploying nuclear-capable intermediate-range missiles, signaling the potential for a new phase in the arms competition between Moscow and Washington. The Russian Foreign Ministry linked the move to US and allied plans to field new intermediate-range systems in Europe, citing Washington's preparations to deploy Typhoon and Dark Eagle missiles in Germany next year. The ministry described these deployments as destabilizing and a direct threat to Russian security. While the Kremlin has not specified when or where new missiles might be stationed, President Vladimir Putin has previously indicated that Moscow plans to place its Oreshnik missile system in Belarus. The Oreshnik, which has already been used in Ukraine, is capable of carrying either nuclear or conventional warheads and has the range to strike across Europe. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov underscored that Russia no longer views itself as constrained by previous commitments, leaving open the option for retaliatory measures depending on Western actions. The Foreign Ministry said such steps would be determined after an interdepartmental review of US deployments and broader strategic conditions. The announcement follows President Donald Trump's decision last week to reposition US nuclear submarines in response to remarks from former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev, who warned against what he called ultimatums from Washington. Medvedev described Russia's withdrawal from the moratorium as the inevitable result of NATO's policies. Intermediate-range missiles were once banned under the 1987 INF Treaty, which collapsed in 2019 after Washington and Moscow accused each other of violations. Their re-emergence raises concerns of a renewed missile standoff in Europe, reminiscent of the Cold War period when both superpowers fielded such systems on the continent. The Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, commonly known as the INF Treaty, is a landmark agreement signed on December 8, 1987 by the then US President Ronald Reagan and Soviet General Secretary Mikhail Gorbachev. This treaty represented the first time the superpowers agreed to abolish an entire class of nuclear and conventional weapons. It required both countries to eliminate all their ground-launched ballistic and cruise missiles with ranges between 500 and 5,500 kilometers, a range covering both intermediate and short-range systems. The treaty's terms also called for the destruction of associated launchers and support equipment. The implementation of the INF Treaty was unprecedented, featuring comprehensive verification measures such as on-site inspections and observation of missile destruction by officials from both nations. This transparency built trust at a pivotal moment in Cold War history. By the treaty's 1991 deadline, the United States and Soviet Union together had destroyed a total of 2.692 missiles. The ban did not extend to air-launched or sea-launched missiles, focusing solely on land-based systems that posed the greatest threat to European and global security. Initially, the treaty applied only to the United States and the Soviet Union. After the dissolution of the USSR, successor states like Belarus, Kazakhstan, and Ukraine also joined, reflecting the treaty's continuing relevance. Despite its success, compliance issues and new geopolitical concerns eventually undermined the agreement. In 2019, the United States withdrew, citing Russian violations and emerging security challenges. Russia formally ended its commitment in 2025. Overall, the INF Treaty remains a milestone in nuclear arms control, remembered for eliminating thousands of dangerous weapons and illustrating how diplomatic collaboration can reduce global threats, even if international dynamics later shift and new challenges emerge.